What's up, everyone? Welcome to our NFL season preview. 2021 season is just around the corner. Games start on Thursday, so let's get into it with our season preview. So how we're going to format this is we're going to break down the predicted standings, and then we'll give you reasons division by division why I have them where they are. So
let's start off with the AFC East.
Yeah.
Right now you have the Buffalo Bills on top. Seems rational, but
Yep.
Let's tell them why.
So I have the Buffalo Bills on top, and not only on top, but going 16-1. I think they have the potential to be the best team in the AFC. There's not a whole lot of reasoning behind this because they were so impressive last year, and they didn't change all that much. They're a top 10 offense. They're a top 10 defense. One of the best two-way teams in the league. Definitely the best in the AFC. The big X factor, though, is Josh Allen. Can he play at an MVP caliber like he did last season? Because no one expected him to come. Everyone expected him to be good, but no one expected him to be great and to challenge the likes of Mahomes and Aaron Rodgers for that MVP. Can he work that magic with Stephon Diggs again? Because their running game, that's probably the one knock against them right now. I like Singletary and Moss. I like that combo, but neither of them are really going to break out for big seasons running. So, but I think the Bills' defense is what's going to win them a lot of games here. I think they have one of the best defenses in the entire league.
Yep. At 2, we have the Miami Dolphins going 11-6.
Yeah, 11-6 there. It may be a really generous one because there are still some big question marks here, and mainly the big one falls around Tua. Can Tua be the guy that they drafted him at number 5 to be? We know he doesn't have much of an arm, but can the surrounding talent of guys like Devontae Parker, guys like Mike Gesicki, can they help him? Can Myles Gaskin, he's another question mark. Can he stay healthy, and can he perform the way he did when he was healthy last year? Because I think Myles Gaskin could be one of the most underrated running backs in the league if he performs the way we think he could. But overall, they're solid on both sides of the ball. So it really comes down to how good can Tua be, because he can't fall back on Fitzpatrick anymore. They don't have that guy. They handed him the reins this year. I think they will be good enough to definitely challenge for a postseason spot here. I have them going 11-6.
All right, so at 3, we have the New England Patriots going 8-9.
Yeah, a lot of people have the Patriots higher than this, but I'm not necessarily a believer. It's not necessarily Mac Jones. But it's rookie quarterbacks. I can't buy into, and this is me buying into Mac Jones, buying into the Patriots system. Mac Jones is still an unproven rookie. I think they still have a losing record because, again, Mac Jones isn't Trevor Lawrence. Mac Jones wasn't what Joe Burrow was. Like he's good. He won a national championship. He was a Heisman finalist, but there's still some questions to be had with rookie quarterbacks. Can he really be better than what Cam Newton was last year? And Cam Newton wasn't great last year. So they cut Cam Newton last week. So it'll be interesting. I think people just need to remember that Mac Jones is a rookie. You can't necessarily view the Patriots like you could view them before when they had Tom Brady. This is not the same Patriots team, and I think people need to start wrapping their heads around that. The O-line is good, though. They have a top 10 defense, so that'll help them. Their receiving and their running core is unproven. I think there's no Julian Edelman anymore, so it's on the likes of Nelson Aguilar and N'Keal Harry to really carry that receiving core, and I don't think they can to the degree that everyone expects the Patriots to carry themselves. So that's why I have them going 8-9.
At 4, we have the New York Jets going 3-14, rounding it out.
Don't let this record fool you. They will be more competitive than this record shows. I think it comes down to the fact that Saleh is better than Gase as a head coach. I think Adam Gase is arguably one of the worst head coaches in NFL history. So let's get that straight. They're in better hands now. It's going to be a slow process. I'm not sold on their defense. I'm not sold on running back for them. And I'm not sold on the fact that they have a rookie QB. I think Zach Wilson has potential to be one of the better quarterbacks of the future, and I think the Jets are in good hands with him, but there are still a lot of questions when it revolves around a rookie QB being thrown into the fire right off the bat with a team that hasn't been good for a while and has that fan base that wants expectations. the Jets fan base is arguably the Montreal Canadiens of the NFL. So they want results. They've been really suffering for years, for lack of a better word. So I like the additions they made at wide receiver, though. They really gave Zach Wilson some weapons there. With the likes, including Corey Davis. I really like Corey Davis as a Titans fan. It hurt to lose him. But yeah, again, they will be more competitive than their record of 3-14, which I have them at.
Yep, fair enough. Now let's move on to the AFC North. You have the Baltimore Ravens topping it off at 13-4.
Yeah, at 13-4, the Ravens have an identity. And it's not traditional, but it's an identity nonetheless.
Yep.
They run the football, just run it by any means. So Lamar Jackson's going to run for a lot. They're going to have guys like J.K. Dobbins when he's back, Gus Edwards. They're going to focus on the run game because their wide receivers can be concerning at times. Can Hollywood Brown lead a wide receiver group? And I'm not sold that he can. I'm not sold. And Mark Andrews is a good tight end, but you can't throw to Mark Andrews all the time. You definitely need his blocking on a lot of plays too to protect Lamar Jackson's runs. So it'll be interesting. I think Baltimore, though, I think Lamar Jackson knows what he is, though. He's a very mobile quarterback, and he's going to burn a lot of guys with his speed. And I think that plays well in the AFC this year. So I think Baltimore, will comfortably finish 13-4 on top of this division.
All right. At 2, you have the Cleveland Browns going 12-5.
Yeah. Cleveland's got a great defense. They've got a great offensive line. They've got great offensive weapons. They have the best backfield duo in the NFL with Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt. Their trio of tight ends. People don't talk about it a lot, but with Austin Hooper, David Njoku, and Harrison Bryant, I think having that many weapons on tight end is something that'll definitely help Baker Mayfield. And again, the O-line's fantastic. Their biggest question marks on offense is Odell Beckham Jr. And Jarvis Landry.
Yeah.
Beckham was injured a lot last year. Jarvis Landry has underperformed the past few seasons. So they have potential at wide receiver, but will those two underperform again?
Yeah.
That remains to be seen. And what Baker Mayfield are we going to see? Baker Mayfield goes through that cycle where he's fantastic some games and then it falls apart some other games. Yeah. Is Baker Mayfield going to put together a consistent season? Because last year I didn't think he was the most consistent quarterback, and they still made it to the playoffs. They still went on a run in the playoffs. So that's something to be seen. Can Baker Mayfield put it all together for one season? I believe he can. I believe Baker Mayfield, as he gets older, will develop more of a game-ready mindset.
Yep.
And I think this year you could see that. So that's why I have him going 12-5.
Okay, yeah. 3 of the Pittsburgh Steelers going 8-9.
Yeah, a lot of Steelers fans won't like this. Obviously, the Steelers were the last remaining undefeated team last year. They did not close the season well. They did not show up against the Cleveland Browns in the playoffs well. I'm not sold on Big Ben at a year older than he is now.
Yeah.
They have inconsistent backups in Dwayne Haskins and Mason Rudolph. Their defense certainly has potential when you have the likes of TJ Watt, Minkah Fitzpatrick, Joe Hayden.
Yep.
But they've looked increasingly vulnerable in the past few seasons. They're not necessarily the steel curtain that we're always used to seeing with the Steelers. So there are some question marks. I think losing Bud Dupree was a big loss this year for them. So we'll see how their defense responds, because that's going to be key for them. And again, this team could exceed my expectations, but the problem is I can't see them beating Baltimore or Cleveland. And that's 4 losses right there.
Yeah.
So, and obviously I don't see them winning 13 other games and just having those be their losses. So that I think 8-9 is reasonable. I think, again, they could exceed my expectations because I didn't expect them to play that well last year. So you can never count them out.
The Cincinnati Bengals, another team you expect to get pounded with a 3-14 record.
Yeah. And this is one of those things that, like I said with the Jets, their record they'll play more competitive than I have their record predicted at.
Yeah.
Joe Burrow has elite potential. He's going to be a fantastic quarterback, but the problem is he doesn't have protection again. As that was the big question in the draft this year. Can they get Joe Burrow protection? And they didn't. They went wide receiver with Jamar Chase. a good pick any other year. I'm not knocking Jamar Chase because he's a fantastic receiving prospect, but Jamar Chase is not going to protect you from NFL defenses and is not going to protect Joe Burrow from going down and having a season-ending injury again like he did last year.
Yeah.
Their running backs are always a concern. I'm not sold on Joe Mixon as a running back one, so that's never great. I do like their receiving core. As if the offensive line can somehow put it together this year, Joe Burrow does have weapons in Tyler Boyd, T. Higgins, and Jamar Chase. So they need time to get better, though. They are a rebuilding team. This is going to be a slow process in Cincinnati.
Yep. Now let's move on to the AFC South. You have the Titans topping it off at 12-5.
Yeah. I wanted to pick the Titans higher, but the reason I couldn't is the fact that their defense is still a cause for concern.
Okay.
They're going to give up a lot of points, and I don't think you can give up a lot of points every game and expect to win and expect to kind of win those toss-up games.
Yep.
I think their offense is elite. I think it's a top 5 offense in the NFL when you have Derrick Henry in the backfield. Having the ball handed off to him by Ryan Tannehill, who is one of the more underrated quarterbacks.
Yep.
And it's not just because I'm a Titans fan. The stats show that he is one of the most underrated quarterbacks and has the potential to be a top 10 quarterback in the NFL.
Yeah.
And they still have A.J. Brown. They go out and add Julio Jones, who was one of the biggest trade targets in the offseason.
Yep.
And the one thing, too, is they have the benefit of playing Jacksonville and playing Houston. So I think that's 4 wins there because those teams are rebuilding teams and teams that aren't expected to be good. So 12-5 for Tennessee. I think it's going to be a dogfight with who I have at number 2.
The Indianapolis Colts, who you have going 11-6.
Yeah. And Indianapolis has an elite defense, potential to be a top 5 defense in the NFL. And they have good protection for Carson Wentz, who I expect a bounce back year, because the one thing, Carson Wentz didn't have protection last year, and that's why he lost his job to Jalen Hurts in Philadelphia. So when they traded for him, I thought this is an ideal situation. This is a very organized team, a very well-run team.
Yep.
Frank Reich runs a tough ship there.
Yeah.
And they have a potential for a great offense. Jonathan Taylor is already established himself as one of the better running backs in the league. And he's only going into his second year, so a lot of potential there. Michael Pittman Jr. and Paris Campbell both have potential to be number 1 wide receiving targets and to really surpass T.Y. Hilton. But T.Y. Hilton's still there as well, so a good trio of receivers for Carson Wentz to throw to, mixed with good offensive guys like in the backfield, like Jonathan Taylor, like Naheem Hines, like Marlon Mack. So it'll be interesting to see what Indianapolis does this year, and I think their defense is really what's going to carry them to an 11-6 record.
Okay, and then at 3 you have the Jacksonville Jaguars going 3-14.
Yeah, and don't let this record fool you. Trevor Lawrence is the right pick. Trevor Lawrence is a great prospect, and Jacksonville, this will probably be the worst that Jacksonville plays with Trevor Lawrence at the helm.
Yeah.
He's a great quarterback prospect, one of the best prospects to be drafted since Andrew Luck. But they just lack those proven pieces around him. As I think their offense is better than some people think when you have Trevor Lawrence handing the ball off to James Robinson, who was the biggest surprise on offensive last year, an undrafted rookie, being one of the top 5 in terms of being a potential top 5 running back in all of the league last year.
Yeah.
And then to pass it off to the trio of juniors in Laviska Shenault Jr., Marvin Jones Jr., DJ Chark Jr. I like their offense. I like the weapons he has. But again, they are unproven over a longer period of time. I don't think the defense is that great. They are definitely young in their rebuild, but this will probably be the worst that they'll be with Trevor Lawrence at QB.
Okay, and then rounding it out, you have the Houston Texans going 1-16.
Yes, as it won't be a good year for Houston.
Yeah.
As Bill O'Brien set this team back significantly with trades that he made, and Deshaun Watson messed it up further with the multiple allegations coming out against him. It doesn't look like Watson's going to play. It looks like doesn't even look like he'll be traded at this point, as there are team names that have been thrown around of where he could be dealt to.
Yep.
But in all likelihood, he's going to sit on the bench this entire year for Tyrod Taylor. And this is no disrespect to Tyrod Taylor, but he's near the bottom of the 32 starting quarterbacks in this league, as I think he's near the bottom because he doesn't have the help around him. He doesn't have that receiving help. I do think they have an interesting running back core, though, with Mark Ingram, Phillip Lindsay, David Johnson, Rex Burkhead. I think they have guys that have proven that they can get it done in the backfield, but they haven't gotten it done the past few years. So that's not necessarily going to translate into wins. Is really the goal for this year is they are rooting for Spencer Rattler and that number 1 overall pick, so that eventually they can move on from Deshaun Watson, move on from that, hand the keys off to a young quarterback, hopefully Spencer Rattler. I think they definitely have potential for that first overall pick because it's not going to be a good year for them.
So let's round out the AFC with the AFC West. You have another dominant season from Kansas City Chiefs going 16-1.
Yeah, as there's not a whole lot of explanation that needs to be had for this. The Chiefs are just going to be the Chiefs this year. They're probably one of the front runners for the Super Bowl this year, if not the front runner. Mahomes is always an MVP favorite, and I think it'll be no different this year. They've got an elite offense. They've got a good defense. They're well coached under Andy Reid and their group of coordinators. So, there's not much explaining to do with the Chiefs at 16-1. I actually think that one loss is going to come to Buffalo this year. So if your only loss is losing to Buffalo, then you're doing something right.
At 2, you have the Los Angeles Chargers going 10-7.
Yes. I think Justin Herbert is the man for the job. He proved that when he stepped up in the sudden absence of Tyrod Taylor last year due to injury. And he really made the role his own. The guys respect him. And I think it was surprising not only to see him even appear last year, but to play the way he did. It was great to see. I think the Chargers have a top 10 offense. They have a solid defense. They have elite or potentially elite players at every major offensive position. So Justin Herbert has the potential to be an elite quarterback in this league. Austin Eckler, I think, has established himself as one of the elite running backs in this league. And I think Keenan Allen is one of the most underrated wide receivers in the league. I think he's an elite wide receiver right now. And you add that to guys like Mike Williams, who are just more weapons for Justin Herbert to work with. I think they've drafted very well the past few years. I think Justin Herbert has adequate protection. I think this team could very well be a postseason team, despite the fact that at 10-7, it looks like they're on the outside looking in. So this team could very well surpass my expectations, but it's always going to be tough in the AFC because I think it's very top heavy.
Okay. At 3, you have the Las Vegas Raiders going 7-10.
Yeah, I'm not sold as John Gruden as a head coach. He's got a different style of coaching than I've really seen before. I think they have a very weak receiving core, despite the fact that they have an elite tight end in Darren Waller. It's likely going to be Henry Ruggs as wide receiver 1, which he had a disappointing rookie year last year. So hopefully he can have that sophomore bounce that a lot of people have. But it'll be interesting to see. I wouldn't really want to give him the keys at wide receiver 1 this early, but this is the situation that they're in. They have to make it work. They have an interesting running back duo in Josh Jacobs and Keenan Drake, both of which have been all-pro caliber running backs throughout their careers. Maybe they're not in that state right now, but certainly that's probably where the offense is going to be relied upon, because I think both of them are capable of carrying heavy workloads, because Derek Carr is a wild card here. You don't know which Derek Carr you're going to get. Are you going to get the Derek Carr that took him to the playoffs a few years back, or are you going to get the Derek Carr that we're seeing now who's underperforming? Their defense is really hard to make out. They have good pieces to build for the future with guys like Morig and Ngakoue. But it's really hard to peg this team. So I think 7-10 is kind of a safe bet for where this team's going to finish.
And rounding out the AFC in the West, you have the Denver Broncos going 5-12.
Don't let this record fool you. They still do have a top 10 defense in the league, but it's just a lackluster offense here. They don't have a great option at QB, as Teddy Bridgewater is really just the best of the bunch there. They don't have a great option at running back. Melvin Gordon, again, is just the best of the bunch there. I think Cortland Sutton coming back from injury and Jerry Jeudy coming off of a disappointing rookie season, they're certainly wild cards. Both have the potential to be great wide receivers, but how are they going to respond with the adversity they faced last season? They will grind teams with their defense, though. I think they will make games competitive because I don't think a lot of teams are as capable defensively as they are. So it'll be a competitive 5-12.
Yeah. Let's head on over to the NFC, starting with the East. You have the Washington football team going 12-5.
Yeah, and I believe in everything that Fitzmagic is going to bring to the football team this year, as a team led by him, Terry McLaurin, Antonio Gibson, Logan Thomas. They've got great players at every major position offensively. And I think they have a top 10 defense, whether it can remain that way and they can get performances like they got out of guys like Cameron Curl last year, kind of surprise performances. I think the surprise factor's gone. They just now have to put up the same thing that they did last year on defense, which was good enough to get them to the postseason. And I think the fact that they play in a weak division, I think they'll go 5-1 against their division rivals here, which will certainly help project them to a 12-5 record and not have a losing record win this division like it did last year.
Yeah. All right, so at 2, you have the Dallas Cowboys going 9-8.
Yeah, and this was the hardest team to predict here because there's a lot of major question marks around this team. One being Dak's health. Can Dak Prescott stay healthy and put it together for a full season like he's been known to do in the past? Obviously, he didn't do that last year, going out very early with that devastating leg injury. And the other big question is Zeke going to continue to decline? Ezekiel Elliott, his best season in terms of rushing yards was his rookie year, and every year he has declined since then to the point where there's a lot of question of whether Ezekiel Elliott can be a proven number one running back on a playoff team. So can he halt his decline? Can he put it together? And I think having Dak Prescott back will certainly help that. And can the defense stay healthy? The defense has not been able to, as that's one of the things the Dallas Cowboys, when they were in their winning days, that's what they were known for. Can they put can they have the defense stay healthy? Because it wasn't last year. If they can stay healthy, this team can certainly be a playoff contender. I like this offense on paper. It's a top 10 offense on paper with Dak Prescott, Ezekiel Elliott, Amari Cooper, CeeDee Lamb, Michael Gallup. Certainly a lot of threats offensively. And similar to when we were talking about the Raiders, I'm not sure what to make of their defense. I think when fully healthy, this defense can be great, but they just have to stay healthy.
Now, another underwhelming New York performance. You have the Giants going 5-12.
The Giants probably take the award for the most dysfunctional preseason. Whenever you have guys retiring during training camp, it's never a good look. As a lot of guys don't necessarily mash with what Joe Judge has going on. I'm not a fan of their receiving core. Kenny Golladay is a good wide receiver. Don't know if I necessarily want him as my top wide receiver if I'm looking to make a playoff spot like the Giants were close to last year, despite their underwhelming record. Sterling Shepard, again, not sold on him. Darius Slayton. These are all guys that have potential, but I don't think that they'll live up to it. Daniel Jones is a major wild card. It seems Daniel Jones can look brilliant some nights, and then he can look like the night when he had a wide open run to the end zone and he tripped over his own feet. So Daniel Jones is definitely, he's always been a wild card, and I think he will be a huge wild card this year as they'll need a big performance out of him. I don't think Saquon Barkley is 100%. So that's a big question. Can he stay healthy? Because he went out first game last year because he has the potential to be a top 3 running back in this league, arguably the best running back in this league. So it'll be interesting to see if Saquon is at 100%. So I really don't know what to expect out of this team, but overall, I don't think it's going to be good.
And then you have the Philadelphia Eagles rounding it out at 3-14.
Jalen Hurts is a huge question mark here. As you saw his debut game, his debut start against the New Orleans Saints, and he ended up beating them last year, a game that no one expected the struggling Eagles to win. But in all actuality here, Jalen Hurts is a mid-round draft pick, undersized at his position. I don't really buy in to the Jalen Hurts hype here. I think you could see a guy like Gardner Minshew take over at starting quarterback here. I think this was a team that was linked to Deshaun Watson. Maybe they trade for Deshaun Watson, maybe not this year, but maybe next year.
Yeah.
Maybe this team challenges for a number 1 overall pick and draft Spencer Rattler. I don't think Jalen Hurts is the answer here. I also don't think Devontae Smith, as much as I believe in the reigning Heisman Trophy winner, I don't think it's great to have him thrown into the fire as wide receiver 1 on this team. I know they have the likes of Jalen Reagor, but I think Smith obviously has the most potential out of all of their wide receivers. So to have him as your main option as a rookie, it's not ideal.
Yep.
I'm not big on their defense. Their defense is not what it was when they won a Super Bowl a few years back. Their offensive line is healthy, so that's good. It's the healthiest it's been in a while, but how long can that stay healthy for? There are some older pieces on that offensive line. So that'll be a big thing, because if you're going to run an unproven quarterback, you have to make sure he has protection. So
okay, so moving on to the NFC North.
Yeah.
Despite some turmoil this offseason, you have the Green Bay Packers going 14-3.
Yeah. When all the players are on the field for the Packers, they are a good team, as they made the NFC Championship last year, and everyone is back, despite the fact that there was some doubt that Rodgers would be back. Aaron Rodgers is back, and if Aaron Rodgers is going to take the field, Aaron Rodgers is going to put up an MVP caliber season.
Yep.
That's what reigning MVPs do. So I think they have an MVP caliber combo when it comes to Rodgers throwing to Devontae Adams.
Mm-hmm.
Aaron Jones is certainly a very powerful running back, and he's now back, signed to a new contract. This team was strong enough to make the postseason push, their big postseason push last year. Some questionable play calling really stood in their way of progressing past Tampa Bay. I think they certainly have the potential to make it back there this year, despite all the turmoil that you mentioned went down with Aaron Rodgers this offseason.
And that's it for winning records. You have the Chicago Bears at 2, going 6-11.
Yeah, this was a harder team to pick, in a sense that I like a lot of things about this team, but I don't like the uncertainty that they have at QB. You have the inconsistency of Andy Dalton, who's going to be their week 1 starter. How long he remains the week 1 starter, that remains to be seen, because they have Justin Fields, their quarterback they drafted in the first round this year.
Yeah.
They have him, who will be, I believe that Justin Fields will be the quarterback of the future for the Bears.
Okay.
But obviously he's a rookie quarterback, so there's going to be some inexperience there. Not sure what to make of their play calling. But I like their receiving core with Allen Robinson, with Darnell Mooney. But there are some question marks nonetheless, especially with Darnell Mooney coming into, he's very young in his career. So what can he put up? Can Allen Robinson still put up a top 10 wide receiver season like he did last year? I think they have good potential on defense.
Yeah.
But I think the question marks on offense will really be the big issue of why they finished 6-11 this year.
Okay. Yeah, the Minnesota Vikings at 3, going 14-13.
Yeah.
4-13.
Yeah, 4-13. I've never really been sold on Kirk Cousins. Still not sold on Kirk Cousins leading that team. They struggled last year, and I just anticipate much of the same, despite the fact that they have Dalvin Cook, who could very well be the best running back in the league. There is hope at wide receiver, because Justin Jefferson, I think, will be one of the best wide receivers in the league for years to come. But I'm not sold on Kirk Cousins. I'm not sold on the defense. A lot of question marks around this Vikings team. And based on what I saw last season, when I thought they could have made the postseason at the beginning of last year, came out flat, never really lived up to expectation. I expect much of the same this year at 4-13.
Okay, and rounding it out, you have the Detroit Lions going 3-14.
It's just the Lions being the Lions here. They will be a tough team. As if you haven't seen their new head coach's opening press conference, I suggest you go watch that, because Dan Campbell is crazy. He will expect tough intensity. He'll expect guys to go out there and rip guys' heads off. That's the type of coach he is. He's a very intense coach, and I think he is a good coach for the future. I think the Lions are definitely in a long rebuild process, as it just seems like the Lions have been in a continuous long rebuild process. But I think it's a little more established now that they have a good head coach. Then it's not Matt Patricia anymore. They definitely downgraded at QB, trading out Matt Stafford for Jared Goff. They downgraded at wide receiver. Their defense isn't great. But again, like a lot of teams, they are in a rebuild process. They're young in their rebuild. We'll see how guys like Penei Sewell pan out.
Yep. Now moving on to the NFC South, you have the Bucs going 15-2.
Yeah, as they're elite on both sides of the ball. This is the reigning Super Bowl. These are the reigning Super Bowl champions here.
Yep.
They didn't change a whole lot. I really like that trio of Leonard Fournette, Ronald Jones, and the new addition Giovanni Bernard in the backfield, or in the offensive backfield. Tom Brady still got his weapons there. He's still got Mike Evans. He still has Chris Godwin. He still has Antonio Brown, Scotty Miller, Gronk, Howard. You can't really be too poor of a team when you have Tom Brady. So I think based on some changes that have happened in the NFC, especially in the NFC South, and we'll get to that with the next team on the board here, I think Tom Brady will perform well.
And again, that's your only winning team in the division. You have the New Orleans Saints going 6-11.
Yeah, as the NFC, there's going to be a lot of disparity and you'll see that in the NFC West when we get to it, why there's so much disparity.
Yep.
I think in terms of the New Orleans Saints, like I mentioned before, this is the team that's probably gone through the biggest change of possibly any team here. Drew Brees is retired.
Yeah.
So one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time is no longer leading your team. It's now down to how good Jameis Winston and Taysom Hill can be and how they can kind of don't think they'll ever be Drew Brees. I think it's very hard to be Drew Brees because he's still a top 3 quarterback of all time, maybe the best quarterback of all time. You can make that argument. So it's definitely going to be a Drew Brees hangover year this year.
Yeah.
Michael Thomas is a huge question mark. He was injured for a lot of last year. Can he get back to the MVP caliber form? Obviously, he didn't win MVP, but he was certainly in the conversation a few years back. Can he do what he did without Drew Brees? That'll be interesting to see. Their defense always ends up being a better than we anticipate every year. And of course, going back to offense, they always have Alvin Kamara, who's one of the best all-purpose backs in the NFL. So this was a tough team to gauge. They could exceed my expectations if Jameis Winston can finally shake off the cobwebs, if Taysom Hill can be the guy that some people expect him to be. But I have him going 6-11.
Yeah, and with the same record, at 6-11, you have the Atlanta Falcons.
Yep. They have a good offense. I think Matt Ryan is very capable for big time performances, as we saw him in the Super Bowl. Obviously, it didn't end up great, as they're the age old 28-3 meme that comes up with their big Super Bowl collapse.
Yep.
They do have good young weapons offensively to build around in Calvin Ridley, in newly drafted tight end Kyle Pitts. But their defense is disappointing in my opinion, and that's probably going to be their downfall this year. Okay. I don't think 6-11 is a bad record for Atlanta based on the records they have put up in the past.
Yep. And rounding it out, you have the Carolina Panthers going 5-12.
Yeah, as this really is a put up or shut up year for Sam Darnold. He's out of New York now. He's not a Jet anymore. I don't think he was happy there, and I don't think they were happy with what Sam Darnold was there. This is a year that, this is a team that could exceed expectations as well and be a lot better than the 5-12 record I have them at.
Yep.
He doesn't necessarily have any upgrade in his receiving core that he had in New York. The only upside, even at running back, the only upside is Christian McCaffrey.
Yeah.
But you can't go to Christian McCaffrey every play, and it's not a knock on DJ Moore or Robbie Anderson, but they're not an upgrade from what he had in New York, and it didn't really work out for him. So, and I think McCaffrey himself is also a big question mark. He missed a majority of the season last year. Can he stay healthy? I think they have a young defense that is building the right way for the future here, with the likes of Jeremy Chin and Derek Brown.
Yeah.
And just to be clear, my prediction does not reflect the fact that there is reason for optimism in Carolina. It may be a poor year this year, but I think there is reason for hope in the future. This is a division that is going to be wide open when Tom Brady leaves.
Yeah.
So I think they are certainly a team that could get back to that Super Bowl caliber team they were, I guess it's almost half a decade ago. So.
Yep. Now, rounding it out, final division, you have the NFC West.
Yep.
Kicking it off with the Los Angeles Rams going 14-3.
This is certainly a team that has Super Bowl ambitions this year, and they have good reason to have Super Bowl ambitions. They might be the best two-way team in the league. Great offensively, great defensively, elite offensively and defensively.
Yeah.
Their top-tier defense is led by guys like Aaron Donald and Jalen Ramsey. They upgraded at QB this year, trading out Jared Goff for Matt Stafford from Detroit.
Yep.
And he has better offensive weapons around him than he did in Detroit. He can throw to Robert Woods. He can throw to Cooper Kupp. He's got a guy like Tyler Higbee, who's always performed well at tight end or performed better than we expect.
Yep.
Good backs in Sony Michel and Darrell Henderson. So paired with that defense, I think this offense will be. This was good enough to make the postseason This offense was good enough to make the postseason last year with Jared Goff.
Yeah.
I think it'll be quite easy for them to make the playoffs with a much better quarterback and an underrated quarterback. In Matt Stafford.
Yeah. And at 2, you have the Seattle Seahawks going 13-4.
Yeah. I absolutely love the trio that is Russell Wilson throwing to DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett. I think it's a great combination. I think it certainly had success last year, and I think it will continue to have success this year. I think Chris Carson has immense potential at running back, and I think Pete Carroll's defense could surprise some people. And it's always a good sign when you have the likes of Jamal Adams and Bobby Wagner and company there. So I think this defense, although it's not the Legion of Boom that we saw before when they made back-to-back Super Bowls and won their Super Bowl, I think it certainly will surprise some of the doubters.
Yep. And last winning record you have in the West, you have the Arizona Cardinals going 11-6.
Like I said earlier, there is disparity in this division, or in the NFC, and it's because of this division. I think the NFC West is going to be the strongest division. I think all 4 teams have potential to make the playoffs. Obviously, like you said, there's only 3 winning records in this division, so I only have 3 of them making the playoffs here. But I think this could be a big year for Kyler Murray. I think it will be a big year for Kyler Murray. He definitely got more weapons around him by adding guys like A.J. Green to the receiving group, and they got better on defense to an already very capable defense by adding the likes of J.J. Watt. So certainly they are worthy of this 11-6 record.
Yep, and rounding out the West, you have the San Francisco 49ers going 6-11.
Yeah, as a lot of people have the 49ers finishing higher than this. Mm-hmm. I don't, and it's not because the problem is not because of the weapons that they have offensively in Deebo Samuel, Brandon Ayuk, George Kittle, Raheem Mostert. That's not their problem. They've got good defensive pieces in Kinlaw, Warner, Bosa. That's not their problem. Their problem is the fact that they play in this tough division, and the fact that I don't necessarily trust their play callers.
Okay.
I don't trust Jimmy G when he's on the field, and I don't trust him to stay on the field. So that's a double whammy there. Yep. And Trey Lance, like I've been saying about a lot of rookie quarterbacks here, he's unproven, and I won't necessarily buy into a winning record for a rookie quarterback until I see something. It's not a knock against them. Trey Lance, I think, is going to be a great quarterback prospect. I think he will definitely be the quarterback of the future for the 49ers, but I don't think as a rookie this is going to be the year for him.
Okay. And there you have it. It's the rundown for this season, predictions, a little bit of a preview for how you see each team performing.
Yeah. Stay tuned. We'll have a kind of a playoff preview based on this, almost a follow-up preview.
Yeah, part 2.
Yeah, we'll have part 2 out in a few weeks, so stay tuned for that. Thanks for watching, guys. If you like this video, give it a like down below. Subscribe so you don't miss any of our other uploads, including part 2 of this NFL season preview. Comment down below what you think of our picks for this NFL season, who you have finishing where in divisions. Let us know your picks down below. And with that, we will see you in the next video. Peace.